The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and sparkled with lights from 1,000 different worlds. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like busy insects. Some looked like crystal flowers that grew in space. Others were round bubbles filled with glowing gas. A few had sharp edges and moved like metal sharks through the void. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of his ship, the U.E.'s Horizon, and watched the station grow larger. His hands were sweaty inside his gloves. This was it. The moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien life. "Captain, we're getting signals from the station," said Tony Rodriguez from his seat at the communications panel. "They want to welcome us." Jake nodded and turned to look at his crew. Dr. Lisa Harper sat nearby, reading data about the aliens they were about to meet. She looked nervous, but excited. The rest of the crew worked quietly at their stations, trying to act normal, even though nothing about this day was normal. "All right, everyone," Jake said. "Remember what we practiced. We're here to make friends, not enemies. Let's show them that humans are ready to join the galaxy." The docking process took 2 hours. The aliens had to build a special air tube that would let humans breathe while moving from their ship to the station. When Jake finally stepped onto Nexus Prime, he felt the artificial gravity pull him down. It was lighter than Earth gravity, which made him feel bouncy. The first alien Jake saw was taller than any human. It looked like it was made of blue crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows everywhere. When it moved, it made a soft singing sound like wind chimes. "Welcome, tiny ones," the crystal being said. Its voice sounded like music played through water. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Vorthic Empire. We are so pleased to meet you." Jake felt a little annoyed at being called tiny, but he smiled anyway. "Thank you, Ambassador. I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing humanity." The crystal alien reached down and patted Jake on the head. Jake had to fight not to pull away. "Such a small head," Krell said with what sounded like fondness. "How do you fit thoughts in there?" Before Jake could answer, another alien floated over. This one looked like a cloud of silver gas held together by some kind of force field. It had no solid body that Jake could see, just swirling mist with bright spots that might have been eyes. "Oh, they are adorable," the gas alien said. Its voice was like wind through trees. "Look at their little faces, and they only have 2 eyes. How simple." "I am Zephyr 9 Wines," the alien continued. "I speak for the Zephyrian Collective. We have prepared a safe habitat for your species on our homeworld. The atmosphere is adjusted for your primitive needs." Jake felt his smile getting tight. "That's very kind, but we have our own worlds to live on." "Nonsense," said a new voice. This alien was the strangest yet. It looked like a giant ant made of black metal, but it had 6 arms and 3 heads. "Your species is clearly not ready for independence. I am High Voice Zek of the Kellari. We have decided to provide protection for your kind." Dr. Harper stepped forward. "With respect, we don't need protection. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We've traveled to other stars. We're not helpless." The 3 aliens made sounds that Jake realized were laughter. "How cute," Krell said. "The little one thinks they are dangerous." "Your species has no natural weapons," Zek pointed out. "No claws, no poison, no thick shell. You are soft and weak. You cannot even survive in most environments without artificial help. You have only 1 heart," Zephyr 9 Wines added. "When it stops, you die. So fragile." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We may not have claws or poison, but we have other strengths." "Of course you do," Krell said in the same tone someone might use to talk to a child. You are very brave for such small creatures. But bravery is not enough in a dangerous galaxy. More aliens began to gather around the humans. Jake saw creatures that looked like walking trees, things that seemed to be made of living metal, and beings that shifted between solid and liquid states. They all stared at the humans with expressions that Jake was beginning to recognize as condescending amusement. "Look at their tiny hands," one said. "They have individual names instead of collective identity," another noted. "How primitive." "They show emotional responses on their faces," a third added. "No mental control at all." Dr. Harper tried again. "Perhaps we should discuss human history and capabilities. We've overcome many challenges as a species." "I am sure." "You have," Zek said. "But now you are safe. The Galactic Council has voted to give humanity protected status. You will be classified as a Level 2 developing species, the same as other cute but harmless creatures." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you will be taken care of," Krell explained. "Other species will make decisions for you until you are ready to make them yourself. It may take a few thousand years, but we are patient." "We've prepared educational materials," Zephyr9 Wine said. "They will help you understand how civilized species behave. No more of this individual thinking that causes so much chaos." Dr. Harper looked at Jake with wide eyes. This was not going the way anyone had planned. The aliens were not treating humans as equals. They were treating them like pets. "We appreciate your concern," Jake said carefully, "but humans prefer to make their own choices." "Of course you do," Krell said, patting Jake's head again. "All young species feel that way. You will learn." A small alien that looked like a purple octopus with too many eyes slithered forward. "We have prepared a special area on the station where you can stay. It has everything you need. Soft surfaces, proper temperature, even some toys to keep you occupied." "Toys?" Tony Rodriguez spoke up for the first time. "We don't need toys. We need to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense treaties." The aliens made their laughing sounds again. "Trade agreements," Zek repeated. "What could your species possibly offer that we would want?" "We have art, music, literature," Dr. Harper said. "We have scientific knowledge and technological innovations." "I am sure they are very nice," Zephyr9 Wine said. "But real civilizations have moved beyond such simple things. Do not worry. We will teach you better ways." Jake realized that nothing he said was going to change their minds. The aliens had decided what humans were, and no amount of talking would convince them otherwise. They saw humans as cute, harmless creatures that needed protection from a dangerous galaxy. As the welcoming ceremony continued, Jake watched his crew's faces. They were all beginning to understand the same thing he did. Humanity's first contact with alien life had been a success, but not in the way anyone had hoped. The galaxy thought humans were adorable, and that was going to be a problem. 3 weeks had passed since the humans first arrived at Nexus Prime. Captain Pete Williams sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES, New Dawn, and watched the stars stream past. His ship was carrying 200 colonists to a new world called Haven. They were going to build humanity's first home away from Earth. The colonists were good people. There was Amy Foster, a teacher who planned to start the first school on Haven. Rick Chun was an engineer who would build the power systems. Martha Stewart was 70 years old, but still wanted to see new worlds. They had families, children, and dreams of a better life. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Carol Brooks from her station, "we have a ship approaching." "It's big." Pete looked at the screen and saw a Kalari vessel coming toward them. It was black and spiky, like a giant metal spider. The Kalari were the ant-like aliens that thought humans needed protection. "Open communications," Pete ordered. The screen changed to show a Kalari face. It had multiple eyes and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. Human vessel, this is Hive Commander Vrak. You are traveling in a dangerous direction. We are here to help. Pete felt a chill run down his spine. Help with what, Commander? You are going to a world that is not safe for your kind. We will take you to a Kalari world instead. You will be much happier there. Thank you for the offer, Pete said carefully. But we have permission to settle on Haven. We have been planning this for months. Permission from whom? Vrak asked. Your species cannot make such decisions. The Galactic Council has decided that all humans must be relocated to protected worlds. Pete stood up. I'm sorry, but we're not going to do that. We're going to Haven. As planned, the Kalari's mandibles clicked faster. You do not understand. This is not a request. We are protecting you from yourselves. We don't need protection, Pete said. We can take care of ourselves. Impossible. Your species is too weak and fragile. You will come with us now. Pete looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. These were good people who just wanted to start new lives. They didn't deserve to be treated like children. No, Pete said. We're going to Haven. The Kalari ship moved closer. Then we will have to bring you ourselves. Do not resist. We do not wish to hurt you. Suddenly, the new dawn shook as the Kalari ship grabbed it with some kind of energy beam. Alarms started ringing. The lights flickered. They're pulling us toward their ship, Carl reported. Pete grabbed his communications unit. All hands, this is the captain. We are being taken against our will. This is not a drill. The Kalari ship's docking bay opened like a giant mouth. A new dawn was pulled inside despite the engines running at full power. Pete felt helpless as his ship was swallowed by the alien vessel. Prepare for boarding, Barack announced over the communication system. We will use our pacification technology to make this easier for you. Pete didn't know what pacification technology meant, but it didn't sound good. He opened ship-wide communications. Everyone stay calm. Remember, we're dealing with aliens who think they're helping us. Don't do anything to make them angry. The airlock opened and Kalari soldiers came through. They were bigger than the ones Pete had seen before, with thicker armor and more weapons. They moved with the confidence of people who had never lost a fight. Stand still, one of them commanded. This will not hurt. The soldier raised a device that looked like a silver wand. It made a high-pitched whining sound. Pete felt strange energy wash over him. It was supposed to make him go to sleep or become paralyzed. Instead, Pete felt more awake than he had ever been in his life. His heart started beating faster. His vision became sharper. Every sound seemed louder. He could smell the metal and oil of the Kalari ship around him. The colonists were having the same reaction. Amy Foster, the gentle teacher, was breathing hard and looking around like a trapped animal. Rick Chun had his hands clenched into fists. Even old Martha Stewart was standing straighter, her eyes bright and alert. The device is not working. One Kalari soldier said to another. They are not becoming passive. Use more power, the commander ordered. The whining sound got louder. The energy wave hit Pete again, stronger this time. But instead of making him sleepy, it made him feel like he was on fire. Every nerve in his body was screaming at him to fight or run. Something's wrong, Amy Foster said. Her voice was shaky but determined. They're doing something to our brains. Dr. Kevin Moore, the colony's doctor, was studying the Kalari device. It's some kind of neural disruptor. It's supposed to shut down aggressive responses, but it's having the opposite effect on us. The Kalari were starting to look confused. They had used this technology on hundreds of species, and it always worked. But the humans were becoming more active, not less. Why are they not submitting? a Kalari soldier asked. Pete felt something snap inside his mind. These aliens had kidnapped his people. They had taken away their freedom. They were trying to mess with their brains. All because they thought humans were too weak to make their own choices. Because we're not pets, Pete said through gritted teeth. What happened next surprised everyone, including Pete. The colonists didn't panic or run around screaming. Instead, they started working together like they had trained for. This moment their whole lives. Rick Chun grabbed a tool from his belt and threw it at the neural disruptor. The device sparked and died. Amy Foster picked up a piece of broken metal and held it like a weapon. Martha Stewart, a 70-year-old grandmother, kicked a Kalari soldier in what she guessed was its knee joint. "Protect the children, someone," shouted. The colonists formed a circle around their youngest members. They didn't have weapons or armor, but they had something the Kalari didn't expect. They had the willingness to fight for each other. Dr. Moore was helping people who had been hurt, but he was also watching the Kalari and learning how their equipment worked. "Their armor has weak points at the joints," he called out. "Aim for the spaces between the plates." The Kalari soldiers were trained to fight other soldiers, not desperate civilians. They expected enemies to follow rules and use proper tactics. But the humans were using whatever they could find as weapons. They were hitting pressure points and weak spots that the Kalari had never worried about before. "Fall back," the Kalari commander ordered. These creatures are more dangerous than reported, but the humans weren't done. They had figured out how to work together without anyone giving orders. Small groups split off to secure different parts of the ship. They improvised. Weapons for maintenance, tools, and furniture. They treated their wounded and kept fighting. Pete found himself leading a group toward the Kalari ship's control room. He had never been a soldier, but somehow he knew what to do. The neural disruptor had awakened something in all of them, something that had been sleeping for thousands of years. "How do we shut down their ship?" Pete asked Dr. Moore. "I'm working on it," the doctor replied. He was studying a Kalari control panel while two other colonists kept watch. "Their technology is different from ours, but the basic principles are the same." Amy Foster appeared at Pete's side. She had a cut on her forehead, but was still helping coordinate the groups. "The children are safe," she reported. "And Rick figured out how to lock down the docking bay. The Kalari can't get reinforcements." Pete nodded. He felt proud of his people. They were not trained fighters, but they were smart and brave, and they looked out for each other. Maybe that was enough. "Captain," Dr. Moore called out, "I think I know how to take control of the ship." Pete looked around at his people. They were scared and hurt, but they were still fighting. They had been underestimated, and now they were proving that humans were not the helpless creatures everyone thought they were. "Do it," Pete said. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. They were not adorable pets. They were survivors. And when you cornered a survivor, you got to see what they were really made of. The news of the Kronos incident spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On every world and space station, beings talked about the impossible thing that had happened. The cute little humans had defeated Kalari soldiers, not with superior weapons or technology, but with something much more frightening. Pure determination. Dr. Lisa Harper stood in the main conference room of Nexus Prime, facing a crowd of alien scientists and diplomats. The room was packed with creatures from dozens of worlds, all wanting to understand what had gone wrong with their assumptions about humanity. The neural disruptor was supposed to make them docile, high-voiced Zek was saying. The Kalari diplomat's mandibles clicked with agitation. "It works on every known species. It shuts down the fight-or-flight response." "That's exactly the problem," Dr. Harper replied. She had been trying to explain human psychology for the past hour, but the aliens kept interrupting with disbelief. "You didn't shut down our fight-or-flight response. You triggered it." Ambassador Krell of the Vorthic Empire made his wind chime sound of confusion. But your species has no natural weapons. How can you fight without claws or poison? Dr. Harper sighed. She had prepared for this moment, but it was still hard to explain. We don't need claws. We use tools. We think. We adapt. That's how humans survived when bigger, stronger creatures wanted to eat us. You were prey animals? Asked a purple octopus-like being from the tentacled collective. We were everything, Dr. Harper said. Prey, predator, scavenger. We survived by being more stubborn than anything trying to kill us. She activated the holographic display behind her. Images of Earth appeared, showing different time periods. Our planet tried to kill us with ice ages. We learned to make fire and clothes. Diseases killed millions of us. We learned medicine. Predators hunted us. We learned to hunt them back. The aliens watched in fascination as the images showed human history. Wars, natural disasters, famines, and plagues. But also recovery, growth, and advancement. Your species has experienced extinction-level events? Zephyr 9 Waynes asked, his gaseous form swirling with interest. Several times, Dr. Harper confirmed. We've been down to a few thousand individuals. But we never gave up. We just kept trying new things until something worked. But you are so small, another alien protested. So weak. We're not weak, Dr. Harper said firmly. We're efficient. We use our brains instead of our muscles. We work together. We make tools. We turn our enemies' strengths against them. She changed the display to show more recent history. We learned to fly by watching birds. We split the atom by understanding physics. We traveled to other worlds by building rockets. We don't give up, and we don't stay down. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Dan Murphy was reading reports at Human Defense Command. The messages coming in from across the galaxy were troubling. Alien ships were avoiding human vessels. Trade routes were being changed. Some species were calling for humans to be reclassified as a dangerous species. Sir, his aide Lieutenant Nancy Phillips said, we're getting reports of other incidents. Dan looked up from his papers. What kind of incidents? Merchant captain. Steve Johnson was dealing with pirates near the Rigel system. They tried to board his ship, but he convinced them to leave without firing a shot. The pirates are now telling everyone that humans can control minds. Dan raised an eyebrow. Control minds? Johnson used psychology, sir. He figured out what the pirates were afraid of and used it against them. But to the pirates, it looked like magic. Nancy continued reading. Explorer Mary Davidson's team was stranded on a hostile world for 6 months. They survived by building shelter from crash debris and hunting local wildlife with handmade weapons. The rescue team said it was impossible, but they did it anyway. Dan rubbed his temples. What else? A human trader named Bob Kelly made friends with a group of Zephyrians by learning their language in 3 days. They're convinced humans have perfect memory and can learn anything instantly. And do we? Dan asked. No, sir. Kelly just worked 18-hour days and had a talent for languages. But the Zephyrians don't understand the concept of working that hard for something you want. Back on Nexus Prime, Dr. Harper was trying to explain human emotions to the confused aliens. We form emotional bonds with almost everything. Our families, our friends, our pets, even our tools and vehicles. That sounds inefficient, Zek observed. It's actually very efficient, Dr. Harper replied. When we care about something, we fight. Harder to protect it, we take better care of it. We push ourselves beyond normal limits. But your emotional responses are so extreme, Krell noted. We have observed humans crying over the death of small animals. Yes, we do that, Dr. Harper agreed. We also adopt orphaned animals from other species. We keep predators as companions. We risk our lives to save complete strangers." The aliens looked at each other with what Dr. Harper was beginning to recognize as alarm. "You keep predators as companions?" asked a tree-like being from the Botanical Confederation. "We call them dogs," Dr. Harper said. "They used to be wolves. We domesticated them over thousands of years. Now they're our best friends." "You domesticated wolves?" Zephyr 9 Wines' gaseous form swirled faster. "The apex predators of your world?" "We domesticated lots of things. Horses, cattle, cats, birds. If we liked them, we found a way to make them like us back." A small lizard-like alien spoke up. "But why would you want to live with dangerous creatures?" Dr. Harper smiled. "Because we're pack animals. We need companionship. And because we're not afraid of things that can be understood and controlled." "What about things that cannot be controlled?" Krell asked. "We figure out how to control them," Dr. Harper said simply. "Or we adapt to them. Or we find a way around them. We don't accept that problems can't be solved." The room fell silent. The aliens were beginning to understand something that made them uncomfortable. Humans were not just cute and harmless. They were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. "Dr. Harper," Zek said slowly, "what would happen if humanity felt threatened by the galaxy?" Dr. Harper thought about the question carefully. "We would adapt. We would find ways to defend ourselves. We would probably try to make friends first, but if that didn't work," she shrugged, "we're very good at solving problems. Even if the problem was much bigger and stronger than you?" "Especially then," Dr. Harper said. "We specialize in fighting things that are bigger and stronger than us. It's what we do best." The aliens began talking among themselves in their various languages. Dr. Harper could see fear creeping into their expressions. They were realizing that their cute, harmless pets might actually be something much more dangerous. "Dr. Harper," Krell said finally, "perhaps we should discuss changing humanity's classification status." "That would be wise," Dr. Harper agreed. "We're not aggressive by nature, but we're also not helpless. We just want to be treated as equals." As the meeting continued, similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The word was spreading. Humans were not what they seemed. They were adaptive, determined, and utterly unpredictable. The galaxy was beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that cute meant harmless. But humans were about to teach them that sometimes the most dangerous things come in small packages. And some of the wisest aliens were beginning to ask a very important question. If humans could do all of this when they were trying to be peaceful, what would happen if they ever decided to be something else? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. The great chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss what they were now calling the human problem. Ambassador Krell stood at the center of the chamber, his crystal form casting rainbow patterns on the walls. His usual musical voice was strained as he spoke. "The Vorthic Empire has completed its analysis of human expansion patterns. The results are ... disturbing." He activated the holographic display. Mathematical equations and probability charts filled the air above the assembled aliens. If humans continue their current rate of adaptation and expansion, they will dominate. Trade routes within 50 years. Their unpredictability makes them impossible to contain through normal diplomatic methods. Zephyr 9 Wines floated nearby, his gaseous form darker than usual. The Zephyrian Collective has studied human emotional patterns. They do not think like civilized beings. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This makes them extremely dangerous. "How can feelings be dangerous?" asked a small, furry creature from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. "Because they are unpredictable," Zephyr 9 Wines replied. "A human might risk their life to save a stranger. Or they might declare war because someone insulted their cultural practices. We cannot predict what will trigger extreme responses. High voice. Zek scuttled forward on his 6 legs, his 3 heads all speaking at once. The Kalari have reclassified humans as a Class 7 unpredictable species. This is the same classification we use for reality-warping entities and cosmic horrors. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Class 7 was reserved for the most dangerous phenomena in the galaxy. Things that could destroy entire civilizations. Without warning. Surely that is excessive, protested a representative from the Merchant Guild. They are still small and physically weak. Size is irrelevant, Zek replied. A human colony ship was recently attacked by Scrag pirates. The pirates had superior weapons and numbers. The humans should have surrendered. What happened? Several. Aliens asked at once. The humans pretended to surrender, then used the pirates' own weapons against them. They turned the pirate ship into a weapon and crashed it into the pirate base. The entire pirate fleet was destroyed. The humans called it a tactical victory. The chamber erupted in alarmed chittering, buzzing, and clicking. The idea of turning defeat into victory was foreign to most galactic civilizations. When you lost, you accepted it and tried to negotiate better terms. There is more, Krell announced. We have intercepted human communications. They have something called military doctrine that includes concepts we find deeply disturbing. The display changed to show translated human documents. Terms like asymmetric warfare, scorched earth tactics, and mutually assured destruction appeared in the air. What is scorched earth? Asked a plant-like being from the agricultural worlds. It means destroying everything useful, so your enemies cannot benefit from capturing it, Krell explained. Humans will destroy their own cities rather than let enemies have them. And mutually assured destruction? Asked another voice. It means if you destroy us, we will destroy you too, even if we are dying, Zek said. Humans built weapons that could destroy their entire planet, just to make sure no one would dare attack them. The chamber fell silent again. The concept of being willing to die to hurt your enemies was almost incomprehensible to most species. Survival was the highest goal. But humans seemed to value other things more than their own lives. On Earth, Admiral Helen Cross was monitoring the Galactic communications at Human Defense Command. The coded messages her people intercepted painted a clear picture. The galaxy was afraid. Ma'am, reported Lieutenant Phillips, we're tracking significant changes in shipping routes. Most alien vessels are avoiding human space entirely. What? About our trade agreements? Helen asked. Cancelled. The Merchant Guild says humans are too unpredictable to do business with safely. Helen frowned. Are they expecting us to attack them? I don't think so, ma'am. I think they're afraid of what we might do if they make us angry. Helen understood. The galaxy had spent centuries developing rules and protocols for dealing with conflicts. They had predictable responses to predictable situations. But humans didn't follow the rules because they didn't know the rules existed. Back on Nexus Prime, the situation was getting worse. Human diplomat Frank Miller had arrived to address the council, but his presence only made things more frightening for the aliens. Honored representatives, Frank began, I want to assure you that humanity has no hostile intentions toward any galactic civilization. But you have created weapons of mass destruction, Krell pointed out. Well, yes, Frank admitted. But we created them to protect ourselves. We also created laws to control how they could be used. Laws? Zephyrnine Wines asked. The Geneva Convention, rules of war, international treaties. We have lots of laws about fighting. The aliens exchanged worried glances. The fact that humans needed laws to control their own violence was terrifying. What happens if someone breaks these laws? asked a crystalline being from the Rigid Order Coalition. We punish them, Frank said. We have courts and prisons and rehabilitation programs. You have specialized systems for dealing with violence? Zek asked. Of course. Violence is part of human nature. We can't eliminate it, so we try to control it and channel it in positive directions. Frank realized he was making things worse, but he couldn't stop. We also have competitive sports where people fight each other for entertainment. And we tell stories about wars and heroes and conquests. It's all part of our culture. The chamber was now filled with the alien equivalent of panicked whispers. Humans didn't just use violence when necessary. They celebrated it. They turned it into art. Mr. Miller, Krell said carefully, what would humanity do if the galaxy decided you were too dangerous to be allowed to expand? Frank thought about the question. We would probably try to negotiate first. We prefer talking to fighting. And if negotiation failed, then we would defend ourselves, Frank said simply. We have the right to exist and to pursue our own destiny, even if it meant war with the entire galaxy. Frank was quiet for a long moment. We would hope it never came to that. But yes, we would fight. We don't know how to give up. The security footage from the Kronos incident was played again. The aliens watched human colonists working together with frightening efficiency. They saw children who showed no fear in the face of death. They saw elderly people fighting with improvised weapons. These are not soldiers, Zek observed. These are civilians, farmers, teachers, doctors. If this is what human civilians can do, what are their actual warriors capable of? No one wanted to answer that question. Dr. Harper, who had been watching the proceedings, finally stood up. May I say something? The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the small human woman. You're afraid of us, she said. I understand. Why? We are different from you. We think differently, act differently, respond to threats differently. But being different doesn't make us evil. But you are so unpredictable, Zephyrnine Wines said. How can we coexist with beings we cannot? Understand? The same way we coexist with each other, Dr. Harper replied. We talk, we learn, we find common ground. We make compromises, we build trust slowly. And if trust fails, Krell asked, then we try again, Dr. Harper said. Because the alternative is worse for everyone. The chamber was quiet as the aliens considered her words. They were faced with a choice. They could try to work with humans despite their fear, or they could try to contain or eliminate them. But the footage from the Kronos incident played again in their minds. If peaceful human colonists could do that much damage, what would happen? If the galaxy actually declared war on humanity? Some of the wiser aliens were beginning to realize that their fear might be creating the very problem they were trying to avoid. If they treated humans as enemies, humans might actually become enemies, and that was a possibility too frightening to contemplate. The galaxy had learned to fear the small, cute creatures who called themselves human, but they were about to learn something even more important. Sometimes the things you fear most are the ones you need most when real danger arrives. The council session continued late into the night, with no easy answers in sight. But outside the chamber, long-range sensors were picking up signals from the edge of the galaxy. Something was coming. Something that would test every assumption about strength, weakness, and survival. The galaxy's greatest challenge was about to begin, and they were going to need all the help they could get, even from the creatures they were afraid of. The warning came from the edge of the galaxy on a Tuesday morning. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through space at impossible speeds. The signals were old, older than any current civilization, but they were moving. With purpose toward inhabited systems. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Titan, reading the emergency broadcasts flooding in from across the galaxy. The message was the same everywhere. Something was coming, and it was destroying everything in its path. "Captain," called out his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, "we're getting a priority transmission from Nexus Prime. It's Ambassador." "Krell," Jake nodded grimly. After weeks of being treated like a dangerous species, the aliens were finally calling for help. "Put him through." The crystal alien's image appeared on the screen. His usually musical voice was strained with fear. "Captain Morrison, we need to talk. The galaxy is facing a threat unlike anything we have seen before." "The automated ships?" Jake asked. "Yes, they belong to a species called the Decimators. They died out millions of years ago, but their war machines are still active. They consume entire star systems to fuel themselves." Jake studied the tactical displays his crew had prepared. The enemy ships were massive, heavily armored, and completely without mercy. They had already destroyed 3 star systems and were heading for more. "What do you want from us?" Jake asked. "We want to work together," Krell said. "Our traditional military tactics are not effective against these machines. But you humans, you think differently. You find solutions where others see only problems." On Nexus Prime, the Emergency War Council was unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from every major species sat around a massive table, sharing information and resources. For the first time in centuries, they were truly united. Against a common threat, Dr. Harper stood at the center of the room, explaining human military theory to the assembled aliens. "The Decimators are stronger than us, yes, but strength isn't everything. They're machines, which means they follow patterns. We can learn those patterns and use them against them." "How?" asked Zephyr9 Wines. "We make them think they're winning, then we change the rules," Dr. Harper replied. "It's called asymmetric warfare. We don't fight them where they're strong. We fight them where they're weak." Commander Alex Turner was explaining human fleet tactics to a group of alien military officers. "Your ships are built for single combat or formation fighting. That won't work against the Decimators. We need to use swarm tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and coordinated strikes, but that seems so ... chaotic," observed a Vorthic military strategist. "Chaos is our friend," Alex replied. "Chaos is something the Decimators can't calculate. They expect logical responses to logical problems. We're going to give them something else entirely." Meanwhile, engineer Nicole Parker was working with alien scientists to modify their weapons. "Your energy weapons are more powerful than ours," she explained to a group of Kalari technicians. "But they're designed to disable, not destroy. We need to change that." "But destruction is wasteful," protested a Kalari engineer. "Sometimes waste is necessary," Nicole replied. "We're not fighting a civilized enemy. We're fighting machines that want to consume everything we care about." The first battle came sooner than expected. The Decimator fleet had bypassed 2-star systems and was heading straight for the Vorthic homeworld. The combined galactic fleet moved to intercept them. Jake watched from the bridge of the Titan as the enemy ships came into view. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like metal flowers blooming in the darkness of space. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor that had been perfected over millions of years. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake said into his communication system. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them head-on. We're trying to make them make mistakes." The battle began badly. The Decimators were everything the reports had said they were. Their weapons could cut through the strongest shields. Their armor could withstand anything the galactic fleet could throw at them. Within minutes, dozens of ships were destroyed. But then the human tactics began to work. Instead of fighting in formation, the Allied ships spread out and attacked from every direction. They used debris from destroyed vessels as cover. They targeted the Decimator sensors and communication systems instead of their weapons. Most Importantly, they did things that made no tactical sense. Human ships rammed into enemy vessels, not to destroy them, but to plant explosives. Pilots flew their fighters into the path of enemy fire to confuse targeting systems. Small ships acted like they were much larger, while large ships pretended to be damaged and helpless. "They're adapting," reported Lieutenant Walsh. "The decimators are changing their tactics." "Good," Jake replied. "That means they're confused. Alex, execute Plan Charlie." Commander Turner's voice came over the communication system. "All ships. Charlie formation. Let's show them what happens when you try to predict humans." Plan Charlie was something that would have horrified the aliens a few weeks earlier. It involved using damaged ships as weapons, coordinating attacks through methods that seemed completely random, and making tactical decisions based on intuition rather than logic. The tide of battle slowly began to turn. The decimators were machines, but they were machines designed to fight logical enemies. They couldn't process human unpredictability. When human ships should have retreated, they attacked. When they should have attacked, they disappeared. When they should have followed established patterns, they did something completely different. "Nicole, are the modifications ready?" Jake asked. "Ready, Captain," Nicole replied from engineering. "But this is going to be dangerous." "Everything we do is dangerous," Jake said. "That's what makes us human." The final phase of the battle was the most desperate. The largest decimator ship, the one that seemed to be commanding the others, was still operational. It was heading for the Vorthic homeworld, and nothing they had could stop it. "We need a volunteer," Jake announced. "Someone needs to get close. Enough to that ship to plant the modified explosive device." "I'll do it," came a voice from the communication system. It was Pete Williams, the captain from the Kronos incident. "My ship is already damaged. I've got nothing to lose." "Pete, you don't have to do this," Jake said. "Yes, I do," Pete replied. "My colonists are on that world. My people. If I don't try, who will?" What followed was the most heroic act in galactic history. Pete Williams flew his damaged ship straight at the decimator command vessel, dodging weapons, fire, and debris. He crashed through the enemy shields and planted the explosive device at the ship's core. The explosion that followed lit up the entire star system. The decimator command ship was destroyed, and without its coordination, the other enemy vessels began to malfunction and shut down. The battle was over. The galaxy was safe in the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and engineers. Worked to rebuild, something had changed. The aliens looked at humans differently now. They had seen what humans could do when they were fighting for something they cared about. "Dr. Harper," Ambassador Krell said during the victory celebration, "we owe you an apology. We thought you were dangerous because you were unpredictable. We realize now that you are dangerous because you care so much about protecting others." "We're not dangerous," Dr. Harper replied. "We're just determined. When something threatens our friends, our families, our way of life, we find a way to fight back, even if it means sacrificing yourselves," asked Zephyr 9 Wines. "Especially then," Dr. Harper said. "That's what makes us human." The Galactic Council met one final time to discuss humanity's status. The debate was brief. Humans were no longer classified as a protected species or a dangerous species. They were classified as something new: emergency response specialists. "What does that mean?" Jake asked when he was informed. "It means," Krell explained, "that when the galaxy faces problems that cannot be solved through normal means, we call humans. You are our specialists in survival, adaptation, and finding solutions where none seem to exist. And if we refuse to—" "Help?" Jake asked. "Then we would understand," Krell replied. "But we do not think you will refuse. It is not in your nature to ignore others who need help." Jake smiled. The alien was right. Humans might be unpredictable, emotional, and sometimes violent, but they were also protective, loyal, and unwilling to give up on anyone who needed them. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans were not adorable because they were harmless. They were adorable because they chose to be harmless most of the time. And that choice, that restraint, that decision to protect rather than conquer, was what made them truly special. Dr. Harper made her final log entry about the incident. The galaxy spent so much time being afraid of what humans might do that they almost missed seeing what humans actually do. We don't fight because we hate what is in front of us. We fight because we love what is behind us. And maybe that's the most human thing of all. The stars continued to shine, and somewhere among them, humans and aliens were learning to work together. Not as masters and pets, not as threats and victims, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, survival in a vast and dangerous universe. And if new threats emerged, if new challenges arose, the galaxy now knew who to call. They would call the small, stubborn creatures who had learned to stare into the darkness and ask, "What if we tried something different?" The galaxy was a safer place because humans were adorable, just not in the way anyone had expected.